Thanks for joining us on another busy night of news here on Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This is The Pulse. I'm Roop Raj. The election is behind us. We know who the winners are, but now there's the question of what's next as they get ready to take office and the impact it'll have on the midterms. But that's why we're here. So buckle up. We have a lot to catch you up on tonight. And we're diving into all of the reaction from yesterday's vote, from the Detroit mayoral race to several races for governor and everything in between. What this all could mean as we head into the 2026 midterms. And the disaster at that Louisville airport yesterday prompting new fears about the airline industry during a time it's already under the microscope. Aviation expert Evan Brode on what could have happened with this UPS plane crash, as well as the impact the shutdown could have on the industry as a whole. And the government shutdown is where we begin tonight because it is officially the longest one on the books ever. And counting, sadly. 36 days since Democrats said no deal and refused to accept the continuing resolution to fund the government. 36 days of both sides digging in their heels, not budging, as federal workers go without pay and people relying on SNAP benefits remain in limbo at this hour, not knowing how much they'll get or when. And as President Trump points a finger at the shutdown for Republican losses yesterday, he's putting pressure on Senate Republicans to take a drastic step. And here it is.
It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so that's a long time.
That likely won't happen, though. You see, Republican leaders have long been against getting rid of the filibuster, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said repeatedly he's not considering changing Senate rules to end the shutdown. He argues it's really a key part of the Senate and allows Republicans to stop Democratic policies when they're in the minority. But these aren't new pleas by the president. Former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell firmly opposing President Trump's calls to get rid of the filibuster in his first term. From the legislative to the judicial branch, where the Supreme Court is hearing arguments tonight over a key part of President Trump's agenda, tariffs. The conservative justices seem skeptical that an emergency law gives President Trump nearly unlimited power to slap sweeping tariffs on countries around the globe. Take you back to civics class just for a second here. There's 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and it's a 6-3 conservative liberal split right now. So only 2 conservatives would need to join the liberal justices to at least limit the president's tariff power.
The vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans, and that has always been the core power of Congress.
It's the power to regulate foreign commerce. These are regulatory tariffs. They are not revenue-raising tariffs.
It's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch.
Now, the Constitution says Congress has the power to levy tariffs. What the Trump administration is arguing is that the emergency law allowing the president to regulate imports also includes imposing tariffs. The court's expected to rule in just a matter of a few weeks. We'll keep you updated every step of the way. And that is just scratching the surface, so let's pick up the pace and catch you up on all the other big stories making news right now in the world of politics. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announcing another deadly strike on a boat accused of carrying drugs. This one happened in the Eastern Pacific. The Tuesday attack killed 2 people. 16 strikes have been carried out by the Trump administration, killing 66 people. President Trump has justified the strikes, claiming the U.S. is in armed conflict with drug cartels. Kind of like the war on terror. He says this is a war on drugs. But the administration has not provided evidence supporting those claims that the boats are actually carrying those drugs. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are calling for more details since Congress has not yet authorized any military action. The FBI has forced out more agents and supervisors tied to the investigation into President Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. That's despite U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro trying to stop at least some of those firings. The firings come amid a bigger effort to push out several officials and agents tied to investigations or moves that anger the Trump administration. 3 officials sued Director Kash Patel in September, accusing him of caving to political pressure. And a federal judge ordering prosecutors to turn over evidence to former FBI Director James Comey's defense lawyers. The judge said he's concerned the department's position was indict first, investigate second. Comey's accused of lying to Congress in 2020. He was indicted after President Trump appeared to urge Attorney General Pam Bondi to indict him and other perceived enemies. He pleaded not guilty. His attorneys say the case is vindictive and has to be dismissed. We do have some sad news to share tonight. Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died. His family said in a statement he died from complications of pneumonia and heart disease. Cheney was a powerful figure in the Republican Party who is seen as one of the most powerful and polarizing vice presidents in our nation's history, serving under President George W. Bush. He was a leading advocate for the 2003 invasion of Iraq and was defense secretary under President George H.W. Bush. He became a key critic of President Trump, even endorsing former Vice President Harris in last year's election. Dick Cheney was 84 years old. There's no easy way to transition from a story like that, but we need to get you caught up on that horrific situation in Louisville, Kentucky. At least 9 people have died. Several people are missing after this UPS cargo plane crashed shortly after takeoff at Muhammad Ali Airport. Video shows flames on the plane's left wing before it actually lifted off the ground slightly and then crashed. As the NTSB investigates, they say they found the cockpit's voice recorder and flight data recorder as well.
Recorders are built for that, and just before we get the question, these recorders were updated from its original manufacturer. They are L3 Harris, installed at 2 different dates. We're going back and verifying that, but we feel comfortable once we get these to our lab in D.C. that we will be able to get a good readout of the applicable data, and that will be yet another point of information that will really help us understand what happened during this point of flight.
While that investigation plays out, the FAA announcing it's reducing air traffic by 10% across what it calls high-volume markets starting Friday morning. The reason? They want to maintain safety during the government shutdown. It's expected to impact thousands of flights across the country. And you know that trickle effect, too. Air traffic controllers have been going unpaid since the shutdown started. And with some calling out from work, staffing shortages have caused flight delays at several airports. A list of which airports will be impacted is expected to come out tomorrow. All of that comes with just weeks to go before the holiday travel season. We're talking with aviation expert Evan Brode next about the impact this could have and the investigation in Louisville. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. Here to talk about the shutdown's impact on air travel, as well as the investigation into the UPS plane crash. Evan Brode, he's an instrument-rated commercial pilot and an advisor to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University's flight department, and a prodigy in so many ways. He actually took his first flight flying a plane when he was 8 with accompaniment, and then at the age of 16, flew solo. And so this is a man who understands a lot about air travel and airspace and what's going on here. And Evan, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us on The Pulse tonight.
It's good to see you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Evan, I want to begin with this terrible crash in Louisville. When you know, we're not hearing all the details yet, but we know at least 11 people have lost their lives. So many others missing right now. Give us an idea as to what we're looking at with a UPS type plane here. How many people generally on board these things? And when you watch that accident video, what do you make of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think about this. This is a UPS aircraft. It's a large cargo airplane. Now, when you look at an aviation accident, it's important to understand the facts and not to speculate. And the reason we don't want to speculate is because it is important to understand that lives were lost here. And so because of that, it is important to leave the speculation to the National Transportation Safety Board, where they can turn that speculation into facts once they have all the information. Now, as you mentioned, yes, 11 people did die, and it could increase as of now. 1 child did die, and there were 3 crew members on board. So 3 crew members were part of that 11 that did unfortunately die that day. There were 18 fire departments, so they had the entire city's fire departments had to respond to a crash like this. And it's such a large aircraft, it was heading to Honolulu. And so it needed a full tank of fuel. It had almost a 9-hour flight ahead of it. So it had 38,000 gallons of fuel, or 220,000 pounds of fuel on board, which is just recipe for disaster if something like this were to happen. Now, on takeoff, if we look at the video, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you look at the number of people on board, now Associated Press saying at least 12 people died on this flight. When you look at how many people are generally on these types of planes, talk about the utility, obviously a UPS plane here.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a cargo aircraft, right? So in this configuration, you probably won't have more than 5 at absolute maximum on a long oceanic flight, right? But when these aircraft were made for the airlines, when airlines were operating these aircraft, there were several hundred people on board. So this is a very large aircraft. And there were 3 crew members on this day in the cockpit, in the flight deck. It was full of cargo and fuel in the back. Now, when an accident like this happens, right, we can look at the video and see that the left wing was on fire. And upon further research, we actually do know that the left engine suffered a catastrophic failure and completely detached from the aircraft and is sitting on the runway. And so then when they designed these airplanes, this aircraft itself has 3 engines. And so it is designed to be able to fly on just 2. So why couldn't 2 of the 3 engines kept the plane in the air? That's what we don't know. And that's what we do have to leave up to the National Transportation Safety Board to figure out.
Evan, I want to ask you about your concerns about air travel in general. You've been a passionate advocate for air travel all of your life and have flown all of your life. And here you are watching what's happening. Now, Sean Duffy saying with the shutdown continuing as it is, they're talking about a 10% reduction. What are your concerns across the country as we see that 10% reduction in flights and just the stress and the pressure that's on these workers?
Yeah, one to understand that the FAA will not allow an airspace that is unsafe for any travelers. And so because of that, since the shutdown, more and more controllers have shown up sick. And so the FAA is having to do exactly what you said, reduce the traffic by 10% in 40 high value markets. Now, as of right now, we don't know these 40 high value markets. We can assume that there'll be some large markets, right? So we can think of Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and many others. But obviously that does not account for 40. So that also brings in some large flight training areas, military operating areas, and things of that sort. Now, 2,000 controllers were actually successfully passed the air traffic controller training at the beginning of the year in February. And the problem is that these brand new controllers aren't even showing up to work. And so we are at risk as a country in the national airspace system of losing these brand new controllers and putting us back into a air traffic controller shortage like we were at the beginning of the year.
And when you talk about that kind of a shortage, what are your main concerns when it comes to safety and also efficiency out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So safety, absolutely, it's completely safe, right? The FAA, as I said, is not going to allow an airspace that is unsafe for millions and millions of travelers across the country, right? And so now it just comes down to efficiency. So when things like today happen, they're going to reduce the airspace by 10% because they just don't have the controllers to be able to operate all these areas and all these requests and all these flight plans. Now, as of now, we don't know exactly how they're going to take these 10% and figure out which 10% is going to be canceled. But I do know that the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, and the FAA Administrator, Brian Bedford, are meeting with many CEOs of airlines tomorrow, and they're going to figure that out together.
What are your main concerns moving forward as this shutdown does continue? I know we talked about efficiency, but in general, you're passionate about the aviation industry, and I think you're concerned, it seems, about the future.
Absolutely. I mean, air traffic controllers are the fundamentals of keeping our airspace operating. It's what gets us on the ground. It's what gets us off the ground. And so it's extremely vital to have air traffic controllers who, 1, are working, but 2, are willing to work and are okay to work. And what I mean by okay to work is they are at the hands, their hands are controlling millions of lives. And so because of that, it is important that we as a country make sure that these controllers are happy to get to work because many of the United States citizens are in their hands.
No, that's so true. And Evan Brode, we thank you for your expertise and your time here, an aviation expert who has been passionate about this for a long time and continues to kind of expand your own career. We thank you for taking us in the air on that little tour today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Root.
We're taking a look at reaction from the election after the break. The Detroit mayoral race, a winning night for Democrats across the country. How all this impacts midterms next year. Troy Mayor Ethan Baker and Detroit News columnist Karen Dumas weigh in. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. It is People, Power, and Politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This is The Pulse, here to talk about the reaction from yesterday's elections. Karen Dumas with the Detroit News and Troy Mayor Ethan Baker. Good to see you both. Thanks for joining us here. I appreciate both of you coming on today. Karen, as a columnist, you write a lot about the city of Detroit, the future of Detroit. You're a lifelong Detroiter who cares deeply about the city. Your reaction to Mary Sheffield's win last night. Does anything change in the city of Detroit because of this?
Well, I'm hoping so. Certainly the election of the first female mayor is significant, but that's only going to hold for so long. I think that I'd like to give her credit for the energy and the engagement that she showed throughout the campaign. I saw people that were energized that, in my opinion, for some time have been complacent. So I'm hoping that energy translates into support for what she sets forward, because it's going to take everybody to work to make the city better for everybody. She can't do it alone. So I really like for everybody to just kind of give her the opportunity and see what happens.
What are the biggest challenges do you see, Mayor Baker, as the mayor of the city of Detroit, when you watch someone walk into a leadership role like this? What are the main challenges that she faces in this economy and this political climate?
Yeah, I think, so obviously the big difference between campaigning for an office and then governing once you're there, that's a huge transition for anyone to take on. But, we've learned, all the polling from throughout the country says people are worried about the economy still. That's what's on people's minds, number one, and how their pocketbook is going to be affected. So she's got to come out strong right away as a new mayor, focused on that, or at least acknowledging it and validating those people's feelings and letting them know that she's there for them and she's going to do what she can as the mayor of the city to do that. I love the fact that, she's the first female mayor in Detroit, and I hope she can harness that excitement and that energy and use it for good to help propel the city to the next level, which is something I think Detroit really needs.
Well, you also look at the fact that this is not just the first female mayor. You have the first city clerk that's a female. You also have a majority council that's now majority women.
Right.
And I think that we shouldn't sit here and monolithically talk about, well, now women will do this or men should do this.
No.
People are people. And
That's
Karen, you have some concerns about Detroit and have had some for many years, because there seems to be this kind of feeling like one part of the city is going well, so the whole thing is going well.
Right.
What are your concerns about where we've been and where we're heading?
Well, I'd like to not see any one group benefit at the expense of the other, and whether that's the residents at the expense of the business community or the business community benefit at the expense of the residents. And so I think that's going to be really her biggest challenge, because she has great connectivity with the community and the neighborhoods, but the business community, Cranes had an article this morning taking credit for fueling her win. They invested in her campaign. So now you've got two sometimes conflicting, not necessarily complementary groups. How are you going to balance the interest and the needs of both of those groups? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. The other thing is that I'd like to see her communicate quite candidly to residents that she can't do this alone, meaning she's talked about education. All right, although the mayor's not formally involved in DPS at all, she can actually be an influencer in that capacity. But what can parents do? What can the community do? What do the students need to do differently? The same thing with community investment or neighborhood investment. What does each neighborhood need? What Sherwood Forest needs isn't the same as what another neighborhood needs.
It's a big city of neighborhoods,
it's
isn't
a big
it?
city, and they're all different. But there's been an analysis of each of the neighborhoods and their individual needs for several administrations now. So now it's time to start taking some steps forward.
Let's talk about endorsements and how important these are. When you have someone like Mayor Mike Duggan, who for the last 12 years, even critics have said, yes, Detroit in many ways is better today than it was before. However, the challenges still exist. What does this endorsement mean for Mary Sheffield, even moving forward?
I think it gave her a lot of legitimacy with that development class and the business leaders who are putting a lot of money into the city. I think that gave them the feeling that, okay, you know what, Mary Sheffield's going to be a mayor that will understand our interests a little bit, at least, because Mike Duggan's saying so. But I think she needs to go beyond Mike Duggan's endorsement. He's done, again, black and white, looking at the numbers, he's done really good things for Detroit, but he hasn't made Detroit a perfect city. There's a lot of work that can still be done. And I'm really hoping that she takes that energy from his endorsement, use it for the good, but find her own path, find her own way. She's got a great opportunity to make Detroit, again, an even better city, and I hope that she can do it, because it's good for all of us.
Yeah, and she's going to have to I want to see her put her thumbprint on here, meaning you're going to have to get your own people. I don't want to see this as an extended version of the past administration. I want to see this, if she's the mayor, I want to see a Mary Sheffield administration. I want it to reflect who she is and her commitment both to the neighborhoods and to the redevelopment.
But you have to continue to keep working the programs that have worked well whose thumbprint perhaps came from her predecessor, but at the same time put your own people in, you're saying?
Well, yeah, exactly. But, each administration, and whether, we have a conversation where people are happy or not about Kwame Kilpatrick, he set a lot of this in motion. Dennis Archer did his part. Dave Bing certainly did his part and from an infrastructure. And Mike Duggan walked into a very convenient environment and landscape that he was able to benefit from. A lot of those things don't exist anymore, so it's going to be a little more challenging.
Let's talk about what happens moving forward in this country. The midterms obviously are concerning to Republicans after what we've seen just last night. Should Republicans, as a Republican who is a nonpartisan mayor, but as a Republican, are there concerns in the Republican Party? Is President Donald Trump and the senators that he had breakfast with this morning direly concerned about the future?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that we've learned that when Trump is on the ballot, Republicans tend to do pretty well. When Trump's in power, the Democrats really succeed. And that seems to be what's consistently happening. It says that, people love running against something more than for something. I think that's part of it, right? And he's an easy target to run against when you're a Democrat. But also, when he is in power, he's out there every day. People hear everything he has to say, and it's a really easy thing to pick up what they want to go against. So I think that's part of it. But the other aspect is I also think it means Trump is Trump. The president's the president. Nobody else can be him. And the people that try, and the Republicans that try to be Trump or like Trump, seem to fail every time, in my opinion. Or they get to a certain ceiling, and that's it.
President Biden and President Trump have one big thing in common as a political observer. They both say the economy is fine when people aren't feeling that. President Biden did that, and President Trump is doing that now. Both of these men have that in common. And if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you know that in your heart of hearts. Things are not as he promised. And Joe Biden did the same thing when he was president. No, the economy's fine.
All politicians do that, Roop. I mean, that's politics.
Isn't that dangerous, though?
That's very
Telling
dangerous.
people that what you're feeling isn't true?
Exactly. It's very dismissive. And like you said when you opened the show, people are concerned about what's going on economically in their own households. And I think that's been a distraction, a diversion from a bigger political picture because they're trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B.
So does Mayor Zoran Mamdani, or the mayor-elect in New York, is he the antidote to that in many people's minds?
I think people are hoping so, and I think overall people are tired of the whole, Republican, Democrat, that whole thing. Like, okay, we're all trying to just be better for ourselves and our family. What is it that we need to do? We all eat. We all have to do the same things.
Right.
Why is it so divisive?
But it's so easy to campaign as an economic populist. It's so easy to say, I'm going to fix all your money problems. I'm going to give you free groceries. I'm going to give you free housing. I'm going to make your inflation drop down. It's really hard to actually affect that change once you're in office, and that happens every time. So we voters give our leaders a pass on that stuff. We shouldn't, but we do. We say, okay.
Because we want to be hopeful. We're like, okay, maybe this time something will happen. But
again, President Biden said the same thing. Then VP Harris started running and saying the economy is going to be fine. And then President Trump said, I'll fix it in the first few days. And we haven't seen much.
The president, though, I think it was the vice president today saying, we need to focus more on the at-home issues a little bit, which is a weird kind of admission by what's going on in the White House that maybe they didn't do something quite right yesterday or leading up to yesterday.
And when I say the economy, by the way, for those who are taking notes and ready to send out a tweet, I mean not the stock market, because most everyday people aren't heavily invested in the stock market. They're trying to put groceries on the table, and that's the concern that so many people have. I want to thank you both for joining us. Karen Dumas, always great to see you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Baker, for joining us as well. That is the Pulse for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Roop Raj. As always, it was great to be with you.